In the middle of Chicago's most exclusive restaurant, silence was the loudest sound in the room. To everyone else, Arthur Sterling was the envy of the business world, a billionaire tech mogul dining with an old friend. But to Sarah, a waitress barely scraping by, he was a terrified man, screaming without a voice. It happened in a split second. A subtle shift of the hand, a tuck of the thumb. "Help me." Then a finger pointing to a bulge in a jacket. Weapon. What Sarah did next didn't just break protocol. It triggered a chain reaction that exposed a billion-dollar conspiracy and left the world wondering who was actually the villain at table 4. The radiator in Sarah Jenkins' tiny apartment rattled like a dying engine, a stark contrast to the hush of the snow falling over Chicago. She tightened the scarf around her neck, checking her reflection in the cracked hallway mirror. She looked tired. The dark circles under her hazel eyes were becoming permanent fixtures, stubborn residents that no amount of drugstore concealer could evict. "You're going to be late," a soft voice came from the living room. Or rather, Sarah saw the hands move before she processed the sound. It was her younger sister, Lily. Lily was 19, deaf since a bout of meningitis in childhood, and the reason Sarah worked double shifts at Le Ciel, the city's most pretentious French restaurant. Sarah signed back rapidly, her fingers flying with the practiced ease of a second language. "I'm leaving now. Lock the door. Don't wait up." Lily signed back. "Be safe. The news said there are protests downtown." Sarah forced a smile she didn't feel, grabbed her coat, and headed out into the biting wind. The protests were the least of her worries. The rent was overdue, and Lily's tuition for the specialized design school was looming like a storm cloud. Le Ciel was a different universe. Located on the 45th floor of the Meridian Tower, it smelled of truffle oil, aged cognac, and old money. The lighting was always dim, the music always low, and the clientele always wealthy enough to ruin your life with a single phone call. Sarah clocked in, changing into her stiff white shirt and black vest. Her manager, Henri, a man who stressed the French pronunciation of his name despite being born in New Jersey, snapped his fingers at her. "Jenkins, you're on the VIP section tonight. Table 4 is reserved for Arthur Sterling. You know the drill. Invisible service. Water glasses never half empty. Do not speak unless spoken to." Sarah nodded. "Yes, Henri." Arthur Sterling. The name was heavy. He was the CEO of Sterling Dynamics, a defense contracting firm that had been all over the news lately regarding a massive government merger. He was worth billions. By 8 p.m., the restaurant was humming. Sarah balanced a tray of crystal flutes, weaving through the tables with the grace of a dancer. Then the elevator doors slid open, and Arthur Sterling walked in. He was older than he looked on TV, perhaps in his early 60s, with silver hair and a suit that probably cost more than Sarah made in a year. But he didn't look like a titan of industry tonight. He looked pale. His shoulders were hunched, his eyes darting around the room as if searching for an exit. Walking beside him was a younger man, tall, broad-shouldered, with slicked-back dark hair and a smile that didn't reach his cold blue eyes. This was the guest. The reservation listed him simply as Mr. K. Sarah guided them to table 4, a semi-private booth near the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city lights. "Good evening, gentlemen," Sarah said, placing the menus down. "Can I start you with something to drink?" "Sparkling water," Arthur said. His voice was hoarse, and a scotch. "Neat. A double." "Just water for me," the younger man said. He reached across the table and patted Arthur's hand. It looked like a gesture of comfort, but Sarah noticed Arthur flinch. The younger man's grip was tight, his knuckles white. "Arthur is celebrating tonight. Big merger. Isn't that right, Artie?" Arthur didn't answer. He just stared at the tablecloth. Sarah retreated to the bar. Something was off. In the service industry, you develop a sixth sense for tension. You know when a couple is about to break up, when a business deal is going south, or when an affair is beginning. This felt different. This felt like fear. When she returned with the drinks, the younger man, Mr. K, was leaning forward, whispering. He stopped abruptly as Sarah approached. "Your drinks," she murmured, placing the glasses down. As she set the scotch down in front of Arthur, his left hand was resting on the white tablecloth. It seemed relaxed, but then his index finger twitched. Sarah paused. She was about to turn away when she saw it. Arthur's hand moved. It wasn't a random fidget. He tucked his thumb into his palm and folded his fingers over it. Help. It was the universal distress signal, popularized on TikTok and social media for domestic violence victims. But seeing a billionaire CEO use it in a 5-star restaurant felt surreal. Sarah froze for a microsecond, her heart skipping a beat. Was she imagining it? Was he just stretching his hand? She looked at his face. Arthur was staring straight ahead at Mr. K, but his eyes flickered toward Sarah, a desperate, pleading dart of the pupils. Then his hand moved again. This time it wasn't the distress signal, it was American Sign Language, ASL. He moved his hand near his hip, thumb and index finger extended, miming the shape of a barrel. Gun. He pointed a finger subtly toward Mr. K's midsection, hidden beneath the table. Sarah's blood ran cold. The tray in her hand felt suddenly heavy. She knew ASL because of Lily. It was her language of love, of survival. She never expected it to be the language of a hostage situation on the 45th floor. Arthur signed one more word, his movements tiny, shielded by the menu he had picked up with his other hand. Trapped. "Is everything to your liking?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling slightly. She forced herself to look at Mr. K, to smile a customer service smile. Mr. K looked up. His eyes were predatory. He scanned her face, looking for cracks. "Everything is fine. Leave us." "Certainly, sir." Sarah walked away, her legs feeling like jelly. She made it to the service station, out of their line of sight, and gripped the granite counter. He has a gun. He's being held hostage at the table. She looked around the restaurant. It was full of civilians, couples on dates, business partners, a family celebrating a birthday. If she screamed, if she caused a panic, the man might shoot Arthur. Or worse, he might start shooting everyone. She needed to tell someone. She spotted Henri near the kitchen entrance, yelling at a busboy. She hurried over. "Henri," she whispered urgently. "Not now, Jenkins. Table 6 needs bread. Henri, listen to me." She grabbed his arm hard. He recoiled, offended. "Table 4, Mr. Sterling. He just signaled me. He's in trouble." Henri scoffed, dusting off his sleeve. "Signaled you? Did he pinch you? I'll comp his dessert." "No, he used sign language. He told me the man with him has a gun." Henri stared at her, then let out a short, derisive laugh. "A gun? In Le Ciel? Don't be ridiculous. That is Viktor Kovac, the son of the Russian energy minister. They are closing a deal. You're watching too many movies, Sarah. Go run the bread to table 6. Henri, I'm serious. He signed help and gun." Henri's face darkened. "If you cause a scene and disturb Mr. Sterling's billion-dollar dinner because you think you saw hand puppets, you're fired. Do you understand? Fired. Now table 6. He pushed her towards the bread station. Sarah stood there, the basket of warm sourdough in her hands, watching table 4. Viktor Kovac was smiling, cutting into a steak that had just arrived. Arthur Sterling hadn't touched his drink. He looked like a man waiting for the executioner. Nobody believed her. She was just a waitress, but she knew what she saw, and she knew that if she didn't do something, Arthur Sterling might not leave this restaurant alive. Sarah delivered the bread to table 6, her mind racing. The rejection from Henri stung, but it also clarified her position. She was alone. Calling the police from the back alley was an option, but by the time they arrived, assessed the situation, and came up the elevator, Kovac could have done anything. And if the police burst in, sirens blazing, Kovac might panic. She needed confirmation. She needed to know exactly what was happening before she made the call that could turn the restaurant into a war zone. She watched table 4 from the reflection of a decorative mirror on the far wall. Victor Kovac, she now knew his name, was doing all the talking. He was animated, aggressive. Arthur was shrinking. Sarah went to the bar. The bartender, a burly man named Mike, who had a soft spot for Sarah, was polishing a glass. "Mike," she said, keeping her voice low, "I need a favor. A weird one." Mike raised an eyebrow. "Shoot. I need you to make a mistake. Make a virgin mojito, but put it in a rocks glass. Make it look like a vodka tonic, and I need a pen." "Sarah, what are you doing?" "Trust me, please." Mike hesitated, seeing the intensity in her eyes, then nodded. He whipped up the drink. Sarah grabbed a heavy linen napkin and a black ballpoint pen from the server's station. Turning her back to the room, she wrote on the inside fold of the napkin. She had to be concise. "I understand, ASL. I saw your signal. Is he demanding money? Or does he want to kill you? Blink once for money, twice for kill." The waitress. It was risky, insanely risky. If Kovac saw the napkin, Sarah was dead. She took the drink and the napkin. She took a deep breath, smoothing her apron. Showtime. She approached the table. "Compliments of the house, gentlemen. A palate cleanser." Kovac looked annoyed. "We didn't order this." "It's customary for our VIP guests, sir. A special blend of lime and mint." She placed the drink in front of Arthur. As she set it down, she deliberately knocked the silverware slightly, causing a clatter. "Oh, I am so clumsy, I apologize," Sarah gasped. In the confusion, she grabbed Arthur's used napkin and swapped it with the fresh one she had written on, placing it directly into his hand rather than on the table. She squeezed his fingers for a fraction of a second. Arthur froze. He felt the pen inside the fold. He felt the thickness of the linen. "Leave us," Kovac snapped. "Right away, sir. Again, I apologize." Sarah retreated to the nearest water station, picking up a pitcher so she had a reason to hover. She watched. Arthur slowly unfolded the napkin on his lap, below the table level. Kovac was busy checking his phone, looking impatient. Arthur looked down. His eyes widened imperceptibly. He read the message. He looked up at Sarah. He didn't blink. He just stared. Then he blinked. Once. Twice. Sarah's stomach dropped. He wants to kill him. But then Arthur blinked again. 3 times. And then he began to sign again, very small, against his stomach. Sarah narrowed her eyes to catch the movements. Bomb, basement, gas. Sarah nearly dropped the water pitcher. It wasn't just a gun. Kovac wasn't just here to kill Arthur. He had rigged something. The basement, the gas line. Arthur continued signing, his face a mask of tragedy. All die. Unless I sign papers. He wanted Arthur to sign over the company or the merger rights. And if he didn't, Kovac was going to blow up the building. It wasn't just a murder. It was a massacre in the waiting. Sarah realized with horror that Henri's threat of firing her was the least of her problems. Everyone in this room, the families, the lovers, Henri, Mike, herself, was sitting on a powder keg. She had to get the police. But she couldn't just call 911 and say, "I think there's a bomb." She needed to get Arthur away from Kovac, or get Kovac away from the trigger. She walked back to the kitchen, her mind frantic. She pushed through the swinging doors. Henri was there, checking the pass. "Henri," she said, her voice surprisingly steady, "I need you to listen to me very carefully. I told you, Jenkins, there is a bomb in the basement attached to the gas main." Sarah interrupted, her eyes locking onto his. "Kovac is going to blow up the building if Sterling doesn't sign the papers. Sterling just told me in ASL." The color drained from Henry's face. The kitchen noise, the clanging of pans, the sizzle of steaks, seemed to fade away. Are you sure?" He said, "Bomb, gas, all die. We have to clear the restaurant. Now." Henri looked at the door, then back at Sarah. He was a petty tyrant, but he wasn't a fool. He saw the terror in her eyes. "Okay," Henri whispered. "Okay. Pull the fire alarm, No, that locks the elevators in emergency mode. People will be trapped in the stairwells if it blows. We need a silent evacuation. No, Sarah said. If we start moving people, Kovac will notice. He's watching the room. If he sees the room emptying, he'll detonate it. He has nothing to lose. Then what do we do? Henri's hands were shaking. I have an idea, Sarah said. But I need access to the PA system, and I need you to call the police and tell them specifically, silent approach, hostage situation, bomb threat. Do not use sirens. What are you going to do? Sarah untied her apron. I'm going to create a diversion. A big one. But I need you to get the other staff ready to herd people out the back service elevator the second things go crazy. Sarah, Henri said, using her first name for the first time. He has a gun. I know, she said, thinking of Lily sitting at home, waiting for her. But if I don't do this, we're all dead anyway. Sarah walked out of the kitchen. She wasn't going to the PA system yet. She was going back to the table. She needed to get the trigger away from Kovac. If the bomb was remote-controlled, it was likely on his phone, the phone he had been checking. She grabbed a bottle of expensive red wine from the decanting station, a 1982 Bordeaux, heavy bottle. She walked toward table 4. Her heart was hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. This wasn't the movies. There was no stunt double. As she approached, Kovac looked up, irritated. I said, leave us. Mr. Sterling, Sarah said loudly, drawing the attention of the nearby tables. I believe there has been a mistake with your credit card. Kovac frowned. He hasn't paid yet. Not for the meal, Sarah improvised, stepping closer. For the deposit. She was right next to Kovac now. She could smell his cologne, sandalwood and expensive tobacco. The phone was on the table right next to his right hand. What are you talking about? Kovac stood up, his hand drifting toward his jacket pocket, towards the gun. This, Sarah said. She didn't pour the wine. She swung the bottle, but she didn't aim for his head. She aimed for his hand on the table. Crack! The heavy glass bottle smashed into Kovac's wrist and the phone simultaneously. Kovac screamed, a raw, animalistic sound that silenced the entire restaurant. The phone skittered across the floor, screen shattering. Run! Sarah screamed at Arthur. Run! But Kovac was fast. Despite his shattered wrist, his adrenaline spiked. He didn't go for the phone. He reached into his jacket with his left hand and pulled out a matte black pistol. He didn't aim at Arthur. He aimed at Sarah. You stupid bitch, he roared. Time seemed to slow down. Sarah saw the black hole of the barrel. She saw the rage in his blue eyes. She saw Arthur lunging across the table, trying to tackle him. Bang! The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. A vase on the nearby table exploded. People screamed. Sarah felt a sharp, burning wind pass her ear. He had missed. Arthur had slammed into Kovac, knocking his aim off. The two men crashed to the floor, overturning the table. Plates, crystal and silver went flying. Everybody out! Kitchen! Now! Henri's voice boomed over the chaos. Pandemonium erupted. Diners scrambled, overturning chairs, rushing toward the kitchen doors. Sarah scrambled backward, slipping on the spilled wine. On the floor, Arthur and Kovac were wrestling. Arthur was older, weaker, but he was fighting with the desperation of a man who had nothing left to lose. Kovac, however, was trained. He headbutted Arthur, stunning him, and scrambled back to his feet, raising the gun again. He looked around, wild-eyed. The phone was broken. The bomb trigger was likely disabled, or at least he couldn't access it immediately. He grabbed Sarah by her hair, yanking her up from the floor. She screamed as the roots burned. He jammed the barrel of the gun against her temple. "Nobody moves!" Kovac screamed at the remaining few who hadn't made it out. "Nobody moves, or the waitress dies!" Arthur lay on the floor, blood streaming from his nose. He looked up at Sarah, his eyes filled with horror. Sarah couldn't breathe. The metal was cold against her skin. She could feel Kovac's heart hammering against her back. She was a hostage, and the real nightmare had just begun. The silence that followed the chaos was heavier than the noise. The screaming patrons were gone. The kitchen staff had fled down the service stairs. The only sounds remaining in Le Sierre were the ragged breathing of 3 people and the distant, mournful wail of sirens rising from the streets of Chicago, 45 stories below. Viktor Kovac dragged Sarah backward, away from the overturned tables and towards the center of the room, using her body as a shield against the glass windows. He knew the drill. By now, snipers would be setting up on the adjacent rooftops, the Prudential Building, the Aeon Center. He was a professional, and professionals knew their angles. "Get up!" Kovac spat at Arthur Sterling. Arthur groaned, clutching his ribs. His nose was broken, blood staining his white dress shirt, turning the expensive Egyptian cotton into a grim, abstract painting. He struggled to his knees, then to his feet. "Victor!" Arthur wheezed, his hands raised in surrender. "Victor, listen to me. It's over. The phone is destroyed. You can't detonate it. Just let the girl go. We can negotiate." "Negotiate?" Kovac laughed, a sharp, barking sound devoid of humor. He tightened his grip on Sarah's hair, forcing her head back. The barrel of the gun dug into the soft skin under her jaw. "The phone was the primary trigger, you senile old fool. Do you think I would come here without a fail-safe? When the signal to the receiver in the basement is lost for more than 15 minutes, the system assumes I've been compromised. It engages a countdown." Sarah felt a fresh wave of nausea. "What countdown?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Kovac leaned close to her ear. "The kind that doesn't end with confetti, sweetheart. We have—" He glanced at his luxury watch, the crystal cracked from the struggle. 12 minutes before the gas main overrides the safety valves. The basement will fill with gas. The pilot light for the industrial boilers will do the rest. This entire tower will turn into a Roman candle." Arthur's face went grey. "You're lying. You die, too." "I have an exit plan," Kovac said. "Or I did, until she decided to play hero." He jammed the gun harder into Sarah's neck. "Now move, to the bar. Keep away from the windows." They shuffled toward the bar area, a darkened alcove made of mahogany and brass. It offered cover from the windows but left them trapped. Kovac shoved Sarah onto a bar stool, keeping the gun trained on her chest, while he kicked Arthur towards the floor. "Sit," he commanded Arthur. "Hands where I can see them." Sarah's heart was hammering so hard she thought it might bruise her ribs. She looked at Arthur. The billionaire looked small, defeated. The titan of industry was just an old man who had made a deal with the devil. "Why?" Sarah asked. She didn't know where the courage came from. Maybe it was the knowledge that she was likely going to die anyway. "Why are you doing this?" Kovac grabbed a bottle of vodka from the shelf, popped the cork with his teeth, and took a long swig. He grimaced, the alcohol stinging his split lip. "Ask him," Kovac gestured to Arthur with the bottle. "Ask St. Arthur about the Falcon project." Arthur closed his eyes. "Don't." "The Falcon project," Kovac continued, his eyes manic. "A drone defense system. Sterling Dynamics sold it to my government. Guaranteed to protect our borders. Guaranteed to stop insurgents." He took another drink. "It failed. It didn't just fail. It was hacked. My brother was in the unit that was supposed to be protected by your technology. When the drones turned on them, there was nothing left to bury." Sarah looked at Arthur. He wouldn't meet her gaze. "It was a software glitch," Arthur whispered. "We fixed it." "You covered it up!" Kovac roared, swinging the gun wildly. "And now you're merging with Omnicorp to bury the evidence forever. If that merger goes through, the classified files on Falcon are sealed for 50 years. I wanted the money as reparations for the families you destroyed. But now I just want you to watch your empire burn." The landline phone behind the bar began to ring. It was a jarring, shrill sound in the tense quiet. Ring, ring, ring. Kovac stared at it. He looked at Sarah. "Answer it," he ordered. "Put it on speaker. If you say anything other than what I tell you, I will shoot Mr. Sterling in the kneecap. Do you understand?" Sarah nodded. Her hands shook as she reached for the receiver. She pressed the speaker button. "This is Le Ciel," she said, her voice sounding foreign to her own ears. "This is Detective James Miller, Chicago PD hostage negotiation team." A calm baritone voice filled the room. "I'm speaking with the person in charge. Is everyone okay in there?" Kovac leaned in, his voice projecting clearly. "This is Victor Kovac. I have 2 hostages, Arthur Sterling and a waitress. They are alive. For now." "Hello, Victor," Miller said, his tone unfazed. "I'm glad to hear they're safe. I want to help you resolve this, so no one else gets hurt. What do you need right now?" "I need a helicopter on the roof in 10 minutes, Kovac said. "And I need a flight path cleared to a non-extradition airfield in Cuba. If I see a single uniform in the elevator, or if I see a drone outside the window, I kill the girl. And tell your bomb squad to stay back. The basement is rigged. If anyone touches the gas main, we all go up." "We can work on the helicopter, Victor," Miller said, "but that takes time. 10 minutes isn't enough to get a bird in the air and clear airspace. I need 20 minutes. You have 10, Kovac snapped. "The timer is ticking. If I'm not on the roof with the hostages, by the time the gas reaches critical density, it won't matter." He slammed the receiver down, ending the call. The silence returned, but now it was filled with the ticking of an invisible clock. Sarah looked at her reflection in the mirror behind the bar. She looked terrified, but then she thought of Lily. Lily, who couldn't hear the sirens. Lily, who relied on Sarah to come home. Sarah's eyes drifted to the windows. The restaurant was on the 45th floor, corner unit. The windows were massive sheets of tempered glass. Outside, the night was dark, but the lights of the adjacent skyscrapers were bright. She knew how SWAT teams worked from the movies and from the stories her father, a former cop, used to tell. They would have spotters. They would be looking for intel. She was sitting on the bar stool, facing the room, with her back to the mirror. But the mirror reflected the back of the room and the windows. If she moved her hands, the reflection would be visible to anyone looking into the restaurant from the building across the street. It was a long shot, a mile-long shot. But it was all she had. She needed to tell them about the gas. The police clearly didn't know about the countdown. They were stalling for time that they didn't have. She rested her hands on her lap, under the bar counter's overhang, hidden from Kovac's direct line of sight, but no, that wouldn't work. The mirror was behind her. She needed her hands to be visible in the mirror. She slowly raised her hands to her neck, pretending to adjust her collar, trying to calm her breathing. Kovac was pacing now, checking the ammo in his magazine. He was distracted. Sarah caught Arthur's eye. He was watching her. He saw her glance at the mirror. He saw her hands. He understood. Arthur suddenly groaned loudly, doubling over. "My heart! I think I'm having a heart attack." Kovac spun around. "Shut up! Don't try anything! I can't breathe!" Arthur fell to his side, thrashing slightly. It was a distraction, a clumsy one, but it drew Kovac's eyes to the floor, away from Sarah. Sarah took the chance. She raised her left hand to her shoulder level, angling it so the reflection would bounce off the mirror and out the window. She hoped to God someone had a telescope trained on that glass. She signed, her movements sharp and desperate. "Bomb timer, 9 minutes." Across the street, on the 48th floor of the Prudential Building, Sergeant Mike Top Hannon lay prone on a yoga mat in a vacated law office. His eye was pressed to the scope of a Remington 700 sniper rifle. Beside him, his spotter, Officer Ruiz, was peering through a high-powered spotting scope. "Movement in the bar area," Ruiz murmured. "Target is pacing. Male hostage on the floor. Female hostage at the bar. I have the shot on the target, but the glass is thick. Deviation is risky," Hannon said, his finger hovering near the trigger. "And we don't know where the explosive is." "Wait," Ruiz said, adjusting the focus. "The girl, the waitress, she's moving." "Is she struggling?" No, she's fixing her hair. No, she's waving her hand. It looks rhythmic. Ruiz squinted. Top, she's doing it again. Hand flat, tapping the wrist, then expanding the fingers. Is she signaling help? It looks more complex than that. It looks like sign language. Ruiz grabbed his radio. Command, this is Sierra 1. The female hostage is signaling via reflection in the back bar mirror. She's using ASL. Does anyone on the team speak sign? A moment of static, then Detective Miller's voice crackled in their earpieces. Hold on. I've got a patrol officer in the lobby who has a deaf son. Sending him up to your position now. Keep eyes on her. Inside the restaurant, the tension was suffocating. Arthur's feigned heart attack had subsided into a genuine wheezing cough. Kovac was checking his watch every 30 seconds. 8 minutes, Kovac muttered. He looked at Sarah. Get him up. If he can't walk to the roof, I'll leave him here to burn. Sarah slid off the stool, her legs shaking. She moved to Arthur, helping him sit up. As she did, she turned her body so she was facing the window directly, but blocked from Kovac's view by Arthur's body. She looked straight out into the darkness. She couldn't see the snipers, but she knew they were there. She had to believe they were there. She signed again. Rapid fire, gas main, basement, timer, 8 minutes. He has gun. No remote. In the Prudential building, Officer Davies burst into the room, breathing hard. He dropped to his knees beside Ruiz and looked through the secondary scope. Okay, show me, Davies said. She's stopped, Ruiz said. Wait, she's starting again. Davies watched the grainy, magnified image of Sarah's hands moving in the dark window. His eyes widened. Holy Shasterisk T, Davies whispered. What? What is she saying? Miller asked over the radio. She says gas main. Basement. Timer. 8 minutes. He has gun. No remote. Miller's voice came back, urgent and sharp. 8 minutes? We thought we had hours. Verify the no remote part. If there's no remote, we can breach without him detonating it instantly. How do we ask her? Ruiz asked. Flash the tactical light, Davies suggested. Morse code? No. Too complicated. Just flash it once for we see you, Hannon said. Ruiz aimed his tactical light across the chasm between the buildings and flashed it once, a bright, blinding strobe that cut through the night for a split second. Inside Le Ciel, Sarah saw the flash, a star winking in the darkness. They saw her. A tear leaked out of her eye. She wasn't alone. But Kovac saw the reflection of the flash on the wine glasses. He spun around towards the window. What was that? He hissed. He ran to the window, peering out. They're signaling. They're getting ready to move. He turned back to Sarah, his face twisted in paranoia. Did you signal them? No, Sarah cried, raising her hands. I've been helping Arthur. Kovac marched over to her, grabbing her wrist. He twisted it painfully. You're lying. You used those hands before. You talk with them. He dragged her away from Arthur and shoved her against the glass window. You want to talk to them, Kovac screamed. Talk to them now. Tell them if I don't hear a chopper in 2 minutes, I'm shooting you in the head for everyone to see. He pressed her face against the cold glass. The gun was pressed into her temple. Do it, he yelled. Sign it, Sarah sobbed. This was it. She was center stage. The snipers had a clear view of her, but Kovac was hiding behind her body, using her as a human shield. If they shot, they would hit her. She raised her trembling hands. He wants chopper. 2 minutes. Then she paused. She took a breath. She looked at the reflection of Kovac behind her in the dark glass. She could see his position. His head was tucked low behind her right shoulder. He was shorter than her when crouching. She signed something else. Something Kovac, who didn't know ASL, couldn't interpret. He is behind right shoulder. I will drop on 3. Officer Davies read the signs in real time. He wants a chopper in 2 mins. Wait. New message. He is behind right shoulder. I will drop on 3. She's going to duck, Hannon said, adjusting his scope. She's giving me the shot. It's too risky, Miller said over the radio. If she drops and he moves, you hit the hostage. "I have the shot, Command," Hannon said, his voice deadly calm. "If she drops, his head will be exposed for roughly half a second before he reacts. It's the only chance. The gas is going to blow in 6 minutes." There was a pause on the radio, a silence that lasted a lifetime. "Take the shot," Miller said. "Green light. On her count." Inside the restaurant, Sarah stared into the abyss of the city. She could feel the heat of the gun barrel. She visualized Lily's face. She visualized the textbooks she needed to buy. She visualized her crappy apartment. She wasn't going to die here. Not tonight. She raised her hand. She held up 3 fingers. Kovac frowned. "What are you doing?" "Tell them the demand." Sarah folded 1 finger. 2. "Stop it." Kovac tightened his grip on the trigger. She folded the 2nd finger. 1. Kovac realized too late what was happening. He started to pull her back. Sarah didn't just drop. She collapsed. She threw her entire body weight downward, pulling her legs out from under herself, becoming dead weight. As she fell, the shield disappeared. For a microsecond, Viktor Kovac's face was visible in the window, framed by the chaos of the night. His eyes widened in shock. From the building across the street, a single crack of thunder tore through the air. The glass of the restaurant window didn't shatter. It disintegrated in a spiderweb of violence. The bullet, traveling at supersonic speed, bypassed the falling waitress and found its mark. Kovac was thrown backward, as if kicked by a mule. The gun flew from his hand, sliding across the polished floor. Sarah hit the ground hard, glass raining down on her like diamonds. She covered her head, screaming, waiting for the explosion, waiting for the bullet, waiting for the end. But there was only silence, followed by the heavy thud of a body hitting the floor. "Police! Breach! Breach! Breach!" The elevators dinged. The stairwell doors burst open. Men in black tactical gear flooded the restaurant, their weapons lights sweeping the room. "Secure the suspect! Check the gas! Get the hostages!" A SWAT officer was beside Sarah in seconds, shielding her with his body. "Ma'am, are you hit? Are you hit?" Sarah couldn't speak. She just pointed toward the kitchen, towards the basement access. "Gas!" she choked out. "Timer!" "EOD is on it!" the officer yelled into his headset. "We have 4 minutes on the timer. Get the gas cut." Sarah looked over the officer's shoulder. Arthur Sterling was sitting up, looking at the body of Viktor Kovac. Kovac wasn't moving. The nightmare of the gunman was over, but the countdown was still running. "Everyone out!" the SWAT leader roared. "Evacuate the floor! Go, go, go!" The officer scooped Sarah up into his arms. She was too weak to walk. As they rushed towards the elevators, she saw the digital clock on the wall of the kitchen pass. 3 o'clock. They had 3 minutes to get down 45 floors before the building turned into an inferno. The elevator shaft of the Meridian Tower was designed to be a smooth, silent conduit of luxury, whisking billionaires from the marble lobby to the clouds in under 40 seconds. But tonight, inside the emergency service car, it felt like a coffin plummeting down a dark throat. Sarah sat slumped against the metal wall of the elevator cab, her knees drawn to her chest. The SWAT officer who had carried her, a giant of a man whose name tag simply read Russo, was checking her pupils with a pen light. "Stay with me, Sarah," Russo said, his voice surprisingly gentle for someone dressed in full tactical armor. "Don't close your eyes. We're almost there." Arthur Sterling was in the opposite corner, attended to by a medic who had squeezed into the elevator with them. The billionaire was pale, his breathing shallow. He wasn't looking at the medic, though. He was staring at the digital floor indicator above the doors. 40, 39, 38. The numbers were ticking down. But so was the clock in the basement. "Radio check." Detective Miller's voice crackled through Russo's earpiece, loud enough for Sarah to hear in the confined space. "EOD has eyes on the package. Status?" Russo pressed a hand to his ear. "We are passing 35. Victims secure. What's the word on the device?" The transmission that followed was broken by static, but the words were clear enough to freeze the blood in Sarah's veins. "It's not a standard IED. It's military grade." hardwired into the building's regulator. I can't bypass the anti-tamper switch. Arthur Sterling suddenly sat up, pushing the medic's hands away. "Let me talk to him," he rasped. "Sir, you need to stay still. Your heart rate is—" the medic protested. "Give me the damn radio," Arthur roared, a flash of his old CEO authority cutting through his physical weakness. "I know what that device is." Russo looked at Arthur, then at Sarah. Sarah nodded weakly. "Give it to him." Russo unclipped the radio from his vest and handed it to Arthur. Arthur's hands were shaking, covered in dried blood and soot, as he pressed the transmit button. "This is Arthur Sterling. Who is on the device?" A pause. Then a tense voice replied, "This is Lieutenant Commander McAllister, Chicago EOD. Mr. Sterling, you have a very sophisticated piece of hardware down here. It looks like a modified Sterling Dynamics Guardian relay. Did Kovac steal this from you?" Arthur closed his eyes, a look of profound shame crossing his face. "He didn't steal it. We sold it. It's part of the infrastructure defense grid. Listen to me, Commander. You cannot cut the yellow wire. You cannot freeze the battery. It has a gyroscopic collapse circuit. If you touch it, it detonates." "I figured that out when I saw the mercury switch," McAllister replied, his voice strained. "We have 2 minutes and 10 seconds before the gas override triggers. I need a bypass code, Mr. Sterling. Tell me there's a bypass code." "There is," Arthur said, "but it changes every 60 seconds based on a rolling algorithm. I need to know the serial number on the bottom of the casing." "Sir, I can't see the bottom without moving it, and if I move it—" "Use a mirror!" Arthur shouted. "Find the serial number. It's the only way." 25, 24, 23. The elevator descended. The air pressure changed, popping Sarah's ears. She felt like she was underwater. The reality of the situation was settling in. Kovac was dead, but his plan was still in motion. He was reaching out from beyond the grave to finish them off. "I got it!" McAllister's voice came back. "Serial Alpha 9 Zulu 44. Hurry, Mr. Sterling. 90 seconds. Arthur squeezed his eyes shut. He wasn't doing math. He was accessing a memory palace. He was a man who had built an empire on code, on numbers. He began to mutter to himself, "Alpha base rolling key. Shift date." Sarah watched him. She saw the sweat beading on his forehead. This man, who had seemed so detached, so elitist, was now the only thing standing between them and a crater in the middle of Chicago. "Mr. Sterling," Russo urged. "I'm thinking," Arthur snapped. The elevator hit the lobby level with a soft chime that sounded absurdly cheerful given the context. The doors slid open. The scene outside was pandemonium. Police lights painted the rain-slicked streets in strobes of red and blue. A sea of uniformed officers, paramedics, and SWAT teams were waiting. But they weren't safe yet. The blast radius of a gas main explosion would flatten the lobby just as easily as the penthouse. "Move! Move! Move!" Russo shouted, grabbing Sarah. 2 other officers grabbed Arthur, practically lifting him off his feet. They sprinted towards the glass doors, into the biting wind and cold rain of the Chicago night. "The code, Arthur! The code!" Sarah screamed, finding her voice. Arthur was being dragged toward an ambulance, the radio still clutched in his hand like a lifeline. He brought it to his mouth. "McAllister, input the following. 3, 7, star, pound, 9, 1. Repeat. 3, 7, star. 3, 7, star, pound, 9, 1. Then hit the function key twice." They were 50 yards from the building now, behind the cover of a massive armored Bearcat vehicle. Russo threw Sarah to the ground behind the heavy tire, covering her head. "Fire in the hole!" Someone screamed over the loudspeaker. Sarah squeezed her eyes shut. She counted the seconds. 1, 2, 3. She waited for the heat. She waited for the shock wave that would turn her bones to dust. Instead, there was a dull, muffled thump from deep underground. The ground beneath them shuddered slightly, like a subway train passing too close. Then, silence. No fireball. No shattering glass. No collapse. The radio in Arthur's hand crackled. "Command, this is EOD." McAllister's voice sounded breathless, bordering on hysterical. "Device is inert. The igniter fired, but the gas valve stayed shut. We are clear. I repeat, we are clear." A collective breath seemed to leave the hundreds of officers surrounding the building. Sarah let out a sob, her face pressed against the wet asphalt. The rain soaked through her thin uniform, mixing with the blood and grime. But it felt amazing. It felt like life. Rousseau sat up, pulling off his helmet. He looked down at Sarah and grinned, his face streaked with sweat. "You okay, kid? You did good." Sarah pushed herself up. She looked over at Arthur. He was sitting on the bumper of the ambulance, a thermal blanket draped over his shoulders. He looked tiny. The adrenaline had crashed, leaving him a trembling old man. He looked up and met Sarah's eyes. He didn't smile. He raised a hand, his fingers trembling, and signed one word. "Sorry." It wasn't just an apology for the night. It was an apology for the world he had helped create, the world that had birthed monsters like Victor Kovac. Sarah looked at him, shivering in the cold. She raised her hand and signed back. Alive. It was all that mattered right now. The chaos outside the Meridian Tower didn't end. It just changed shape. The fear of death was replaced by the suffocating weight of bureaucracy. Sarah sat on the back of an ambulance, a thermal blanket wrapped around her shaking shoulders. She watched as Arthur Sterling was led away, not to a hospital, but toward a convoy of black SUVs. He wasn't being rescued. He was being contained. A man in a charcoal suit broke away from the convoy and approached Sarah. He moved with a terrifying lack of emotion. When Detective Miller tried to intercept him, the man simply flashed a badge that made the police officer step back and look at the ground. "Miss Jenkins," the man said. His voice was smooth and cold, like polished stone. "I'm Mr. Blackwood. I represent Mr. Sterling's security team." Sarah stared at him, clutching the blanket. "Where are they taking him?" "Mr. Sterling requires specialized care and debriefing." Blackwood reached into his jacket. Sarah flinched, but he only produced a thick envelope. "We know about your sister, Lily. We know about the design school tuition you can't afford. We know everything, Sarah." He placed the envelope on the stretcher beside her. "Inside is a check for $50,000. Consider it a grant from the Sterling Foundation, a down payment on your recovery." Sarah looked at the envelope. It was more money than she made in 2 years. "And what do I have to do for it?" "Nothing," Blackwood said, his eyes boring into hers. "Just heal and forget." "Forget what? The bomb? The gun?" "The ramblings of a madman," Blackwood corrected firmly. "Victor Kovac was a mentally unstable terrorist. Whatever he said about the Falcon project, about drones, about glitches, it was all delusion. If you repeat those delusions to the press, you might damage national security, and you might find your life becomes very complicated. It wasn't a threat. It was a statement of fact. He told the truth, didn't he?" Sarah whispered. "The drones killed those people." Blackwood sighed, adjusting his cuffs. "There is truth, Sarah, and there is the world we live in. Sometimes they are not compatible. Take the money. Take care of your sister. Go home." He turned and vanished into the rainy night. Sarah stared at the check. It was blood money. Silence money. She wanted to tear it up. That's what a hero would do. "Sarah!" A scream cut through the noise. Lily ducked under the police tape, fighting past a startled officer. She saw Sarah and sprinted, colliding with her in a fierce hug. They pulled back, and Lily's hands flew up, signing frantically. "Are you hurt? I saw the news. They said bomb. I was so scared." Sarah grabbed Lily's hands. "I'm okay. I'm alive." "Who was he?" Lily asked. "The man with the gun?" Sarah thought of Kovac. She thought of Arthur, trapped in his golden cage. She looked at Lily's worn-out shoes and thought of the eviction notice on their fridge. If she spoke out, she wouldn't just be risking herself. She would be risking Lily. Sarah picked up the envelope and put it in her pocket. He was just a bad man, Sarah signed, forcing a smile. And this? This is a tip from a very difficult customer. 2 days later. The story broke, but it wasn't the story Sarah lived. The headlines read, "Hero Waitress saves billionaire from extremist." The articles claimed Viktor Kovac was a radical seeking ransom. There was no mention of the Falcon project, the hacked drones, or the government cover-up. The narrative was sanitized. Arthur Sterling announced his immediate retirement due to health reasons, and the merger with Omnicorp went through the next morning. Sterling Dynamics stock soared. Sarah sat in her apartment, the silence heavy. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Hello? Sarah. The voice was weak, broken. Arthur? Sarah stood up. I don't have much time. They monitor my calls, Arthur said. I'm being sent away. A private facility in Switzerland. For my heart. Arthur. They lied, Sarah said, her voice trembling. The news changed everything. I know. The machine is too big, Sarah, even for me. He paused, his breath rattling. But Kovac didn't die for nothing. He woke me up. You woke me up. I didn't do anything. I took their money. You survived, Arthur said. I sent something to the design school, an anonymous scholarship for Lily, paid in full, housing included. Arthur, I can't. It's not from the company. It's from me. Please. You gave me my voice back for a few minutes. Let me give her a future. Sarah looked at Lily's closed bedroom door. Thank you. Be careful, Sarah, Arthur whispered. You're a hero now. Everyone is watching. Don't let them see you sign the wrong thing. The line went dead. Sarah walked to the window. The Chicago skyline was bright, hiding a million secrets. She was safe. Lily was funded. They had won, but she couldn't let it end here. She went to a closet and pulled out a shoebox. Inside was an old journal. She opened a fresh page. She couldn't tell the news. She couldn't tell the police. But she could remember. She picked up her pen. The radiator was rattling, she wrote. It was snowing in Chicago, and Arthur Sterling was screaming without a voice. She wrote for hours, detailing every sign, every word about the Falcon project, every threat. She was no longer just a waitress. She was the keeper of the truth. And in a world of silence, the truth was the only weapon she had left. And that is the incredible, untold story of the night at Le Ciel. What started as a dinner service became a fight for survival that exposed the dark underbelly of the corporate world. While the news called Sarah a hero, they buried the reason why she had to be one. It makes you wonder, how many other stories are hidden behind non-disclosure agreements and national security concerns? If this story had you on the edge of your seat, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel, and if you want more gripping stories of true crime, survival, and mystery, make sure to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss an upload. What would you have done in Sarah's position? Taken the money or risked everything to tell the truth? Let me know in the comments below. Stay safe and always watch the hands.